Welcome back to Domestic Dad Cleaning Up the Mess. Today's episode is one that's raw, powerful, and proof that redemption is real. Joining me today is Ron Gruber, a man whose story reads like a modern-day prodigal son, one of darkness, violence, and desperation, transformed by an encounter with God that redeemed his life. From surviving an abusive childhood to leading an outlaw motorcycle gang, to finding himself in the depths of a prison cell. Ron's journey shows that no one is beyond the reach of grace. In this episode, we dive into the hardest battles, fight against shame, the struggle to forgive yourself, and the courage it takes to believe that God has a plan for you. Ron opens up about moments that brought him to his knees, the voice that stopped him from ending it all, and the relentless love that pulled him out of the darkness. If you've ever felt like you've gone too far, or that your past disqualifies you from a future, this conversation is your reminder that God specializes in comebacks. So lean in and get ready, because this is one episode you won't want to miss. Grab a mop, because today we're cleaning up the mess. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to take a moment to let you guys know that Domestic Dad Project is more than just a podcast. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping fathers navigate sobriety, parenting, and personal growth. Our mission is to provide support, resources, and community for dads who want to break cycles, rebuild lives, and become the men their families need. If you'd like to support our work and help us continue to reach more fathers in need, consider donating at domesticdadproject.com. Every contribution helps us expand our programs and change more lives. So just wanted to thank you guys in advance for being part of this mission. Now, let's get into the episode. Has life gotten off track? Are you looking for some inspiration to be a better dad? People say all the time, I'd die for my kids. Okay, but would you live for them? Actually live? Get yourself healthy? Make better choices? Eliminate distractions? Would you lead them more intentionally? Would you get sober? Take better care of yourself, physically and mentally. You'd only have to die once. Your kids don't need you to die for them. They need you to live. Have you thought about getting sober, but you just didn't know where to start? If so, welcome to the Domestic Dad Podcast, your go-to destination for candid discussions on journeys into sobriety, parenting, and personal growth. I'm Nick Barnett, founder of the Domestic Dad Project. I've been a dad since I was 18 years old. I'm also a trauma survivor, an alcoholic, divorced, happily remarried, hardworking, humbled by life, domestic dad. On this podcast, you'll find interviews with people who have walked that path, including myself, coaches, mentors, and pastors who can help guide you on your journey. You're going to need resources and inspiration. You can find that here. This is the community for you to lean into, so you can start living life as a domestic dad. So let's grab a mop and start cleaning up the mess. There we go. So, Ron Gruber.
Yes.
Thank you for blessing Domestic Dad Cleaning Up the Mess. It is it's an honor to sit with you, and I'm very grateful. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I look at it the same way. We're here to work with God and for Him, and so we'll just have His prompting of that Holy Spirit give us the direction.
Yeah.
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 I'm excited.
Cool. So, all right, man. So here, I'll just I'll start the way I always do, and I'll let you just go, because here's the thing, and I don't know if everybody knows this or not. So I've talked to some people about experiencing your story for the first time, but it happened a long time ago for me. It had to have been over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That I heard your story for the first time, and that it's always sat inside of me and stirred inside of me, and it's one of those things that just I feel that, you know, anybody that's looking for help, you know what I mean? Anybody that needs to know that there's redemption on the other side of sin, if you will. It's possible. So So yeah, man. Let me just start there. What was childhood like for you, Ron?
Well, I try to make sure that everybody realizes at first that whatever I'm going to say, I'm not trying to give you some poor, I've had it rougher than anybody story. It's just the way it is. My dad was a beast when it come to working. Uh, he worked hard all day, but then when he got off work, he drank. And the thing about him, he was treacherous and dangerous, and he had an habitual habit of coming home and beating on my mom and taking her and doing things to her in front of us. So it was one where, my mom, even when he went to work during the day, I can remember where she pulled me up and said, "Do you really love me?" I said, "Yeah, I love you, Ma." She said, "Well, then you'll protect me, won't you?" And you're going, "Yeah, I'll protect you, Ma." And you could hear him here. He'd come in at night, and you could hear him out there screaming, and then you can hear her clothes being torn. He's doing, and she's screaming for help. And we had four of us in the family, and sometimes they'd look at me and go, "Don't go out there. You know what he's going to do." But I gave my word, and I said I'm going to help my mom, and I just go to this zone where the anger and the hatred, and I go out there. And of course, men are territorial, so he'd grab a hold of me, and he'd grab a hold of my head and pick me off the floor and say, "What do you think you're doing? You know how stupid you are out here?" And he'd bang me and throw me on the floor, and then he'd go back and finish Mom. And I'm sure he thought in his life or in his mind that he won, but I won because I had said I was going to do something. I carried it out, no matter what the pain that came with it. And so that I like to say it's an isolated situation. That was just part of my of what a week or two bring every month. And so the things got the war between me and my dad, and my brother. He gave my brother just as much. They grew. By the time I was 13, he'd take a. We lived outside of Cedar Falls on 14 acres, and sometimes one of the goats would get hurt, and Mom would love on it, and the goat would now follow her around and stuff. And so he'd say she'd go in town to get groceries. And the first time it happened just blew me away. Where he said, "Go get Beauty out of the fence, out of the pen, and bring her out here and pour a pile of grain so she can eat." All right. So I watch. He comes out of the house. He's got a double barrel. Well, it's actually a pump shotgun.
Wow.
And he's jacking rounds. And I don't know how people feel about guns, especially a shotgun, but that's a weapon that when it comes out, it demands attention. And when it ain't in your hand, it's in somebody else's. It's really, it's a stressful kind of feeling, especially when you're 13 and you're going, "What's he doing?" Well, when they come up to the goat and he says, "Stand right next to me." And I said, "What?" And he started rubbing the top of that goat's head with that shotgun. And I said, "No, he's." So I went to turn. He grabbed hold of me and goes, "Look at you, little coward." Smacked me in the head. He said, "What? You just stand here like a man. You grow." And I just went to that zone that I went when I go in and try to help her. When he'd come home at night, I went into that same zone and just stood there. And he'd rub the top of the head and he'd squeeze the trigger and he'd blow that goat away where it'd just die. And like I said, I'd like to say it only happened once. I can't do that. I can't say it was an every month deal, but it was just one of them things that would happen. And that's why at 13, my mom finally decided to divorce him. And that's when some liberation came where she moved in town. And what does she know? She moves like 3 blocks from a motorcycle gang.
Yeah.
Right? So it's where me and my brother are seeing and hearing these Harleys and seeing how they're fighting outside. The women are doing what they're told. These bikes are radical. And it's like, yes,
That's where you got your upbringing, your education.
Amen.
I'm going to do one more clap real quick.
All right.
There we go. Just to sync up. I had to switch a chord, but man, that to how old were you when that happened?
Like I was 13, 14 when we started running around with them. They let us hang around for a little bit and then, "Come on, get out of here, kids." And so I'd run with the street kids. That's how running wild at night. I went to Eldora, the training school, when I was younger for fighting. And so it's like it got to the point where, we got to run with them most of the time, and that you run with a gang, you start seeing what does it take to get in. Well, you supposed to, back then, because I'm 68, almost 69 years old.
Yeah.
So when back then you're supposed to be 21, and here we are, 14, 15 now, 15, 16 with them, and we just figured out that whatever these guys 25 or 21 were doing, all we had to do is do the same things and not be afraid, and we can get our patch. And so they ended up prospecting us at I was 17, my brother was 16, and we took a year, but that's how you get into the gang is prospect. And we made our bones, and we each got our patch. And then, of course, living a life of selling drugs, and because not everybody in the gang does that. Some gangs got club guys in them where they do the regular jobs, but I was selling dope and everything else. So the walls come falling in where the law busted me and I went to prison.
How old were you?
Oh yeah, I was 20. I turned 21 in the Iowa State Penitentiary in Fort Madison.
Your 21st birthday.
My 21st birthday was sitting in there where you're not even supposed to be down there till you're 21. But yeah, I turned, and I can't say back then. We're talking about the 70s, and in the state penitentiary, there was nothing good about it. I mean, it was a time where I knew that I told myself I'm not going to be a tough guy in here, but I'm not going to be messed with. I'm going to, and I ended up where I got stabbed, I got cut, I got beat, and I stabbed me several individuals and beat up me 2 correctional officers. And it's not bragging, it's just part of the journey. It's part of what was going on in there, where that made me, where not only was I in prison, but they put you in what's called the hole. And you go in there where you're not around anybody 24 hours a day. You're just in a little box walking around a little bit that you can. And so I did over 2 years in that box just because of the way I carried myself in there. And so, all I know, I was radical, racial, everything. It just became worse. I became more where I said, when I'm free, I'm getting mine. This is it. They owe me. And so I did 7 years and got out, and I went right back to what I know. I went right back to the drugs, selling them, and the alcohol, and getting in the gang and doing what I do.
Comfort zone. I mean, that's what you knew.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't like you had this other alternative lifestyle that you could go get a job and pick up a 9 to 5.
Right.
Well, isn't that how you were?
Wasn't even structured in my brain. I mean, none of that was just like, what are you guys talking about? I mean, I just wasn't there. And so what I did study was the gang. And I found that at that time, there was about 500 of them, and they were across the United States. And there was one chapter in this whole gang. It's called the Nomads. And what they do is they bodyguard and do security on a level that's higher than anybody else's in the club. And to be able to be a nomad, you have to prospect, or not prospect, but you got to do the work of what a nomad would do, making the miles and being able to be there first if something's going wrong. And so we did that, me and my brother, and we became nomads within a year. And then I became the security. I became the nomad enforcer, which gave me where I did security for the big parties, or if we went somewhere out of state with the boss, how we did it and stuff like that. And I thought then that I had made it. Look, I got my bike, I got women, I've got money, I've got dope, I'm a nomad. I mean, what else is there to life? And I was rolling along like that for a couple, 3 years when it just snapped. The people closest to me, I get a call and says, hey, such and such just shot himself. I said, what? I said, well, that guy's got to be a coward. I mean, we just don't do that. I guess that's how we, and I knew he wasn't a coward, but I wasn't going to play into, justifying it either. So I waited like 3 months, and it happened again. Another one that was closer. So you get one, then you get another one where you're going, well, I guess this is how we're weeding out the weak ones, because there's no way that this is an option for us. And then the third one, I go down to Kentucky, and I barely get there, and they tell me that Ruggie he tried to shoot one of his own in the clubhouse, took a couple shots, and was tearing things up. And so they said, "Hey, that's your job. Go over there and stop that." So I went over to the house. Back then we had steel doors on a lot of his clubhouses, and security that he pounded on the door, and he opened the door. He had a gun. He had that thing in my face. He goes, "Hey, okay." I said, "What are you doing, Ruggie? I just want to come over here and have one with you." He goes, "Yeah, you and me. We'll have one together, just you and me, our last one." I'm going, I just know to talk to him a little bit, have a couple of drinks, and then we'll get this thing where we can go downtown. And so he turns around and he walks in, and I go to close the steel door, and you can smell the gun smoke from him shooting the gun. Things are flashing because lights have been shot.
Yeah.
And I close the door, and I watch him walk in, and he's pouring the drinks, but he's got that gun in his hand. So I go, "Hey, you got to wave that gun around with me. Just go ahead and put it down, bro. You see, mine ain't out." And he looks at me and kind of looks at me again, and then goes, "All right." So he puts it down, and then he starts saying something about, getting ready to drink this drink. And as he's going to lift his glass, I snatch the gun. And he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, is that what it is? You just tell me the things we've done together. How many people in this gang, how many bosses even, would say something like, put that gun down, and I'd actually do it. I did it for you." And I said, "All right, Ruggie, I know it now. I got this together. We're going to put it down. We're going to drink a little bit, and then we're going to go out and raise some cane." And I put the gun down, and we drink the drink, puts it down. As soon as he does, he takes that gun and he stuffs it up his nose. And I'm going, "Ruggie, now I love you." And he takes it out of his nose, and he comes up, and he's about this far from my face. He puts it against the side of his head, and he goes, "I know you love me." Boom! And I mean, I don't know. From there, it gets kind of crazy because I don't know how the firemen or the ambulance guys and the police station got inside the house. Because, like I said, there's steel doors and they're bolted. But somehow I'm trying to push the stuff that's coming out of his mouth. I'm trying to blow air down his lung, to make his, chest raise. But all I know is, boy, they come through the door and they hit me on top of that head with that nightstick and was wrapping me up. And Ruggie was laying there. And I like I said, I don't remember much about other than I went to jail, except for as I looked down on the floor, there was all this blood and a nomad patch on his back, laying there dying. Everything I believed in, everything I've been doing was there, and it was dead. It was dying. It was, and so the next couple of months that I existed, I couldn't drink enough.
Yeah.
I couldn't do enough drugs. I could just see his head, see his face. Riding didn't seem like, I just lost all appetite for doing what I used to do. And I finally, after a few months, took it to the bosses and
said, "You're struggling."
Yeah. And said, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to take a leave of absence, or I'm going to retire. I'm going to do something, but this isn't it. And they said, just take some time off, go feel yourself out and get back here and get back to work. Well, what do I know? Like we said earlier, I know prison. I know a little bit of farming. And I know, that's it. I'm a drug dealer, a convict. And so I put an ad in a farmer's co-op and I said that I can bale hay, I can drive a tractor. It's the only thing I can do. That I said, I work hard, just expect good pay. And it took several weeks, but I got an old guy that he owned quite a few acres, and he used to be a pastor and had a 4-way bypass. And he talked to me and said, I'll pay you if you work hard, you get paid good. I just got one thing. You have to eat lunch with me and my wife. We'll be cooking lunch, so don't bring a lunch. You can bring snack, but you're going to eat at 12 with me and my wife. And I'm going, oh, okay. I mean, I weighed 240 then, and I ain't far from it now. I love to eat. Yeah. So I'm going, and so when I started working for him, I was putting fence up and baling hay, and I go in the house, and he'd be sitting at the table with his Bible, and he'd be reading, and she's up at the stove, and she's a cooking, and so I'd sit there, and I mean, she could cook too, and things happened. There was times where one time she's cooking, and he just looks over at her, and he kind of smiles. He got this diamonds in his eyes look.
That glimmer.
That love. Glimmer, the love. And she turns around, she looks at him back like that, and she's just humming, and the more you ate, the more it made her happy. So I made her real happy because I'm always asking for seconds. But this went on for months where he'd read that Bible and she'd cook that food, and I started learning how well a Christian mother can cook. I say that, but the good thing it wasn't a good thing, but it was a catalyst. One day I sit down and he goes, "Why don't you pray us in? Why don't you pray before we start?" And
had you heard him pray the whole time?
Yeah, the whole time he pray. He'll pray at noon over the food.
Yeah.
Right. And I could hear him talk once in a while. He'd be saying something while he's reading that Bible, but all I was concerned with was the food. He could do as he wanted to over there at the table.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm going to get being fed proper. So, and what was I saying there?
He said, "Would you pray us in?"
Yeah, we prayed, and I went, "Doggone you, Ray! You and your wife are so good to me. But you got a peace about you in this house. There's something in here, peace, something that I don't know anything about. So don't ever ask me to do something like that again." And he looks at me and he goes, "All right, Ron. All right." And he prayed us out. And, that I know it kind of bothered him, but it's where I was at.
Yeah.
And I went, and now I don't know whether it was 2 weeks later, which was ironic, or 2 months later, but I get a call from the brothers, and they're going, "Hey, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of your picture and your face is all over the TV with 14 other members of the gang you were in. And they're looking for you for murder and for racketeering. So you got state and federal charges. Get out of there." So I'm sitting there going, somebody rolled on me. Somebody had to say something. I mean, and I'm going. So I get the gun, I get a long rifle, and I get a pistol, and it's dark. So I'm going to take my truck, and I'm going to go figure out who I thought might do it. So while I'm doing all this, I go to leave, and I get this where I can't go. I'm so. Usually if I got something on my mind, I'm going to do it. I just lock it in and we go and get it done.
Yeah.
Here, it wouldn't stay locked in. It was like, I'm feeling guilty about it. I'm feeling uneasy. And I'm like, wait. So I said, okay, look, I know now what had happened, that Ray and Mary and what they were doing at noon, something had rubbed off on me where I didn't have just that clear cut, yeah, let's go. It was, God was injected inside of me just by the way they treated me, just, by the way they acted. And so I took the rifle, laid it on the truck, turned the truck off, took the pistol, and I went out in the woods. I said, I'm going to do it like Ruggie did in the clubhouse. I ain't going back to prison, especially for life, because they want me for murder, everything else. I'm 38 years old, when I'm going, no, I'm not doing this. So I go out to the woods, and I just started breaking down where I'm screaming. I'm pounding the ground. I mean, I'm punching a hole in this stuff. I'm screaming. I started crying. I'm emptying everything out. What I'm trying to do is psych myself up to where I can take this weapon and put it against my head. And I got to the point screaming and hollering that I actually jacked it back and started going into just trying to mentally get this done. And this is where I'm not a theologian. I didn't see a 25-foot angel in a brass band singing and screaming. But I heard a voice, no different than your voice talking to me right now. And it said, stop. Don't kill yourself with that gun. And I mean, I looked, and I'm like, because if I see anybody, it's dark, I'm out of my mind, and this isn't something you should be messing with. And I looked, and I couldn't see anybody. So I went back to psyching myself up and banging the ground and everything else. I jacked this thing back again, and I crack and I hear me. Don't kill yourself with that gun. Kill yourself with me. And I surrendered to it. I said, Lord, if that's you, Jesus, just help me to understand what I need to know, because this is all new. I said it not in them exact words. I couldn't believe what was going on. But I know that when I got off the ground, it's like he took his mouth and sucked just enough of that steel wool feeling, where I get a taste of comfort, a taste of peace, just a little bit. And I said, wow. So, I'd like to say now I lived happily ever after, and that was the end of it. But that was just the beginning.
That's not the finish line.
That's not the finish
That's
line.
the starting blocks.
That's the starting blocks. And I mean, because when I went to court, they gave me 50 for the murder and called it second degree. And I won, and the feds got me for racketeering, right? So I had to go do the federal time, and I did that first. And getting there, the first 2 months was a living hell. That's just, I can't describe it. Living hell. I read this thing called the Bible because I knew Christians carry them things. But I wasn't, I worked with a few people on the job that talked a little bit about God, but I basically was getting my word from the Word. And so, the first 2 months, I was hating people. I was like, I know what happened in the woods was true. I know what happened to me. Then why ain't I having these kind of things? Or why ain't I so full of it? I get out and I read the Bible a little bit, and I go out there and I seemed like I was getting crapped on twice as hard as before when I wasn't working with the thing.
Yeah.
But
everything gets heavier.
Yeah, it gets heavier. And then one day, like he did in the woods, had a couple months in, the Bible turns to several spots, but one of them was Timothy, where he says, I want you to suffer the pain of what's going on with me. I want you to be my soldier and not worry about making everybody else happy. You make me happy. That's how you'll make them happy, is by listening to my commands, but obeying them, doing them. There's no more, there's no more black, white, green, brown. There's no more guards, a hack, a pig. All these things are, they're lost people that need to know God, and you don't do that any other way but by God's way, using that spirit that's in you to feed them. So, I said, okay, I come out of there, and for the next 19 years, I'd read the Bible, but I was doing it. I was doing what he would say. If he says he builds his house on sand, he who doesn't use the word of God to build it, compared to the man that builds it on the rock, because he's listening to the word, but he's obedient to it. So the things we do are building them blocks, a foundation that we need to be able to stand upon Jesus and know that we're really not playing a game, that we're with the boss, because he says very few find it. A lot of them are playing a game, but very few get on that narrow path. And so doing it, I mean, I ran into weird things happening in prisons. One of them, like, Leavenworth, you're not supposed to be 3 or more on the yard gathered because it may be a riotous condition starting.
Sure.
Yeah, so, but I'd open the Bible and start reading for, there's 10 guys around you. And so they finally said one day, hey, they want your security office. I went, oh, no. So I go to the security office and I said, all I was doing, he said, I know what she's doing. What I want you to know, you want a special, a room and a special time to do that so that we stay within the rules. You're like,
well, yes, sir, I do.
Yes, sir, I do. I mean, that's like, Jimmy, how does that happen, Lord? And then one of them, I'd be 2 correctional officers up in 79. Well, here it is all these years later, and I got to the Newton prison, and I had a guy come and go, you know who the warden is here, don't you? And I go, no. He says, you remember one of them guards you beat up way back? No. Yeah, the one where you hung him over the range. We were like 5 tiers up high and hung him over the range, took his beeper from him, took his keys from him, did a whole bunch. I mean, they said, oh, he's the warden now. And I'm going, oh, no. But again, there was a Friday night revival, they called it, where an outside group from a college came in and sang. And so I go to it, and who's there? I see him, and I go, uh-oh. And I hear this little voice go, hey, go over and tell him you're sorry and that you're walking as a Christian now. And it won't happen again. And I go, as I'm trying to build up my confidence to walk over there, I hear this other little voice go, just get the hell out of here now. Right? So I'm like, oh my God. I go to get out of there, and then I hear that voice go, well, you won't do what I ask? You do it in the old days for your bosses, but you wouldn't do it today for me. And, come on. So I went, all right. So I walk over and I put my hand out, and he looks at my hand for a minute and goes, I said, this never happened, but I believe too now. So he shook my hand, and we ended up, before I left there, he prayed for me. And then, things just kept happening over the years. That book you got laying there, this guy gets a hold of me saying, do you realize people are talking about you on the street? And I said, what? Yeah, they're talking about how God's using you in prison. And I'd like you to have your testimony, and you write it up, and then I'll put it in there. And I said, well, I've only got 15 years in by that time. I said, I still got years to go. And how do you know if you put me in that book, it might turn sour or turn bad on the deal? He goes, no, God said you're going to be just fine to get you and do it before you get out of prison. I went, well, let me pray on it. So I prayed on it for about 6 months and felt a release of, go ahead. It's not nothing bad. So I wrote my testimony up, and I had 15 in and about 4 or 5 more to go. But got to see it where he sent me a copy of it, and you're just going, God darn it. Then when we get out of prison, it keeps advancing. People that yeah, business owners and everybody were coming to me, and pretty soon we started what do you think we should do? And I said, well, I don't know, a ministry. And John Landon's on the team, and he's a prominent businessman up in Iowa City. And so he wrote it up, and instead of taking 3 years, it took like 6 months. We got cleared to have a program under the 501c3. And man, we got in with the Iowa Hawkeyes, got to work with that team, the UNI Panthers, and I work with the Panthers to this day, where I talk to the red shirts, give them my testimony, talking about what are you going to be plugged into, because my coach in the old days was the wrong people, but now God, being the coach, is leading me into where, like here today, I get to sit down with you. It's an honor where people hear things, but it encourages them, because it really happened. There's nothing more you can say than, if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And it's when you really know that kind of stuff, it makes you say, well, I guess I do believe in life after death. Because when it all comes down, you got to believe that you're going somewhere, and that somewhere is by the blood of Christ. And all this helps. A lot of these testimonies that people hear sometimes spur them on to go through the hard times, because it ain't going to be easy being with God.
No, and I think that's the hard lesson that Christians learn once they become Christians, is that once you recognize sin, once you know what it is, and you're aware of it, it's still hard.
Yes, it is,
because it doesn't just go away. Actually, if I could be completely honest with you, Ron, I feel like once I was baptized, once I was, not just over the faith line, but like there was inward growth, and God started working in my life, and the fruit started showing up, right? And he gave me some things. I will be honest with you, sin creeps in harder. It's almost like it knows that you're like starting to pull some people out of the light, or that you're stepping into the light, and it's like, wait a second, I want to throw this hook at you, and it's going to try to like bait you and pull you into it. Have you experienced that, like in your life?
Yeah.
I
mean, it should be smoother, is what you're thinking, but it's like, Lord, can you help me here a little deeper? Because the things that should be occurring aren't occurring, and what is occurring is I'm doing something right, and it's being treated like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. I would even go as far as to say, like, there's I see it, and like it'll happen, right? Like, here comes temptation, and it throws its like little bait at me, right? Like, and then I'll kind of knock it away, and I'm like, all right, thanks God, thanks for your help with that one. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's what keeps a smile on my face.
Right.
That's what keeps the Holy Spirit in you when you stay obedient. Like you talked about being a soldier. God called you to be a soldier, and you knew how to be a soldier, right?
Right.
But you just had to stay obedient to God in the way that you were being a soldier.
Exactly. It's his way, Yahweh.
Yeah.
And the thing about him is you don't know. I got a call yesterday. Guy's a sold out believer for Christ. Used to be in a gang on the East Coast, and he's real serious about life, and he loves God. And they found a grapefruit-sized tumor or cancer in his guts, and some little ones, some other places. And so he's going to have to take chemotherapy and everything else. And he said he wasn't going to. He was just going to let God either heal him or not do it. But that he had talked to one of his Christian brothers that said he had the same kind of disease, but they gave him like 7 months to a year to live. But he's 12 years now because he did the tests. He did do the chemo. And so the dean goes, I think I'm going to try it too then, because God can. And I said, well, God's in the Bible, Hezekiah, I think it was, asked for another 15 or 20 years, and God granted him that. So you just never know. You just don't know what the Lord's going to allow to happen. And then how am I going to grow in it? What's the deal for me? And then you're responsible. You got so many little ones. You see,
you met them inside.
Yeah. So it's just like they're learning. Do
you have kids?
Yeah. I don't. They're out of the house, except for I'm helping people now that need help moving out of the area they were in, drying out.
Yeah.
Doing stuff like that. Yeah.
Once you got out of prison, what was your relationship like with your kids?
It was hard because they lived out of state.
Yeah.
And they didn't know me, except for
they knew a different version of you.
They knew a different version. They had heard things.
Ron 1.0.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, great. But they wanted to know me.
Yeah.
And so, we get together at least once or twice a year, because me being on paper, I couldn't just, where now I'm off paper, I'm off parole. So Yeah, I want to see them more. Um, but they turned out good. You know, I got my daughter, and lives in Iowa, and I'm seeing her fairly regular, so that relationship's growing.
Yeah.
We'll get to the boys too. It just feels good. I'm glad. I mean, like today, this is a good feeling, doing the right thing, and then the sky is actually warm, and it feels good to say, that's that God. Just, we got plenty of work to do, that's for sure, but day by day, a little a day, whatever we can get done.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll tell you what, man. When you shared your testimony with me, and again, I think it was over 10 years ago, it stirred something inside of me that let me know that no matter how dark of a corner you're in, no matter how alone you feel, that God can reach out and talk to you and bring you through it. If he brings you to it, he'll bring you through it. And that was just something that always stayed with me, man. So whatever God had for you, it had an impact on me. So thank you for that.
Well, that's God. I can't take the good. I can't really take the bow on the deal, because I'm just a vessel that he allows, man, and it makes me feel good because I want, I know God's forgiven me of my sins, but I mean, they were sins. And so,
did you wrestle with that pretty hard?
Yeah, I do. I sometimes especially early in the morning, sometimes I just got to get up and walk and pray, and because I know now that worst thing you can do is take somebody's life. I mean, there's no way they're going to, if they didn't know God, you surely rob them of having a chance to know God.
Yeah.
And that's, to think about that, to think, well, I get to go, but some other people ain't going to, I don't think they were with them when it happened. So, but I just pray that they were, and that, somehow they're with God. That's all I can do. Because I got to be able to operate. If I center on that, then I'm no good for anything or anybody, and it's working this way.
I think there's a lesson in that. Don't center on the sin.
Amen.
Think about staying in the light, right?
That's right.
Yeah. There's a picture that's I keep it on my phone. I keep it on my screens. I keep it on that screen behind you, and it's a lamb stuck in the mud, and he's all wet. He's all dirty. He's lost, and he doesn't know where to go. And I always think of myself as that lamb quite a bit. I think that's what shame does to us. That's what, centering on the sin does to us. But the other part of that picture that kind of that's out of focus in it is that, Jesus is right there looking for you. He's running towards you, man. Yep, he's running towards you. And it doesn't matter how dirty and filthy and sin that you are.
That's right.
Because he's looking for you and he's trying to pull you out. He's going to come through and he's going to pull you right out of that cold, wet, dirty spot.
Long as you let him, and he'll be exposing things to you, things that you need to learn, or things that you need to, because when he talks about meditating on it day and night, he talks about taking the word and filleting it like a fish. Get up inside that word, get all there is, and then, allow yourself to live the do's and don'ts of it. It's so much more than that,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find yourself in the word every day?
I'm in the word every day. I can't avoid it. There's something that it's
got a hook in you.
It's got a hook, and I still read my Proverbs, like more regular than most. I just, I like reading the Old Testament as well as the New. So I don't just go under the New Testament. The whole book's there, and 3/4 of it's Old Testament. I'm going to squeeze that for the power that lies within it, because I want in on everything he's got. I want in on it. I'm not trying to have diamond rings and Cadillacs, but I want everything he's got going on, wisdom, the knowledge, so that the direction that I'm walking or leading somebody in because they're watching is Christ, not Ron. You know, and so,
Yeah. So a few questions. So this podcast is called Cleaning Up the Mess, right?
Right.
So what's the biggest mess that God's allowed you to clean up in your life?
I think one of the things that's laid on my heart is one of the victim's son got a hold of me, and said that he wanted to, pray with me and that he has forgiven me, and that this has woke him up to, man, if he had stayed with what he used to do, he might have ended up like I had. But by listening and meeting me and stuff, he doesn't have any desire to be what I used to be. It's healed him in some areas where he feels confident in himself. So I think, meeting the victim's son, and then him he said, I want to hug and pray. And I was in prison. He come and visit. They had a big thing set up. Then he come over, he gave me a hug, and then he prayed with me. And so it just shocked me because, there's things that's happened to me by people. I've been shot. I've been stabbed. I don't want to eat a meal with the guy that done did one of them, but I still don't want to hate him either. So it showed me, you're somebody that's forgiven the best you can. What more? You killed his parent. Yeah. I mean, so him being able to be open to that is God, and it makes me remember that.
That's a gift.
Yeah, that's a gift, and it's one to be so thankful for, because I got this, to this day, he'll call me or I'll call him,
Yeah. That is the fruit that comes from living on the vine. I'm not trying to be, actually I am. I'm going to just share it. There's a verse in the Bible that I read the other day. It's John 15:5, I believe.
Okay.
And it says, yes, I am the vine and you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. And I think that right there, that mess that was cleaned up was fruit. Right. Because you live on the vine. Do you think if you were Ron 1.0 and never transitioned, if you never met that pastor and his wife, if you never saw what the warmth of God's love feels like, that you ever could have lived on the vine in that way?
I don't see I know God maybe he would use another way, but I'm a true believer that, when he does things, he isn't just going to sit there and let you not try to do the right thing. Yeah. Sometimes he comes and then he waits a while and lets you, and so it's like, once you realize, oh, he's trying to do something here. What is he? I want to be intentional about it. I want you got to submit. You got to submit. And, especially when you're guys that ain't used to submitting to too many people, being able to submit and then say, I'm looking for it, saying, okay, where's it at? How do you want me to do this one? So
yeah. I can think of so many instances in my life where I felt called to do something. Like I felt it, right? Like there's a it's almost like an internal nudge. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, hey, you need to do that. You need to part with this thing that you want and you need to give it up for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, I'm going to try to avoid that. But I go back to Jonah and the whale all the time. Like, hey, Jonah's like, dude, I'm not going to Nineveh. I'm just not. Right. And then all of a sudden he's out on the ocean, he's sailing the other way, and a whale comes and swoops him up, keeps him in his belly and spits him out in Nineveh. It's kind of like you were called to go to Nineveh, and one way or the other, you're going to end up in Nineveh. So you might as well just submit. Yep, submit. And do the thing that you feel called to do.
That's right.
because at one point, one way or another is going to happen.
You know, that's good stuff. That's where you get excited about, man, you know, because you know you're doing it, but every now and then when you get an eye opener, it's just, you just go, man, how much does he love me? Because he's been, I was 38 when I got him. I'm 50, I'm 68 now. It's like, these years are going by fast, I'm noticing, and being able to pick up on the signs so that you're a better soldier for him.
Yeah.
You know, so that every time we're in, he talks about like, you know, we beat our flesh down, and I don't swing like a boxer, not hitting air. I'm hitting the meat and potatoes, so that there's something from God learned, because it does me no good to know it like a stop sign. I know it's there, but I'm going to run it because I don't feel I have to stop, because I can see far enough both ways. So I'm going to do it my way instead of stopping no matter what. Like, guys, there are times when you don't see why he wants you to do something, but just stop, do what he wants you to do, and then wait and see how it works out. Because if God wants you to do it, it ain't going to fail. You know, it just probably won't come the way you thought it would, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have another question for you. And this one's a little more serious. Yeah. So you got to a place, you saw a dear friend end his life.
Yeah.
And then you got to a place where, you know, you thought you'd do the same. And I know in that moment God saved you, but sometimes in that moment people don't hear the call, right? So to all of our people who are listening and they feel so consumed by the things that they've done, shame, guilt, or even what's been done to them.
Right.
What advice would you give that person? What would you tell them? Where would you direct them? What would you tell them to do if they were at point break and feeling like they were in such a hard spot? What would Ron Gruber say to them if he could jump into their life when they're feeling that way?
I'd make sure that they knew they were in the right spot first.
Yeah.
Just because you're feeling this pain, this trial that's in front of you, and that's what it is you're either going to have to go back to it again and again. That's why they did 40 years out wandering around when it could have been very simple. So now it's listen to what God's asking you to do. And no matter what, just do it. You may not feel like it. You may not understand it. Just do what he's asking you to do and keep at it. Keep at it with your eyes open, with your heart open, your mind open. That Holy Spirit's going to draw you into where you need to be. Say what you need to say according to him, but just do it. Now you're at that pivotal point where we can bypass this. You can do it half yoker, or you can learn and learn what obedience in its fullest means by doing it. And that's probably what I'd tell them. I mean, because, you know, there's various ways of getting that done, whether you're consuming different parts of the scripture, reading it, your prayer life. I mean, our attachment to God. There must be they call it prayer, but that's them conversations. You're daily talking to him. And so that when like that thing you just said now, that when the trial comes, you're going, I know what I got to do. I don't want to do it like this again, but I know I got to, because it's his way. And so, because even doing the right thing when you know it's the right thing for God, some days it's like dragging your feet. You just don't want to, but you know down deep, why should I be fighting him? That's that body. That's that old nature constantly trying to have its way.
Let go of the flesh.
You ask God, just take the flesh away from me. I don't want it. Okay, let me have it where I don't have to see something pretty in my mind says, or somebody in Walmart has to cut in front of you where you're going, thinking to yourself, why you? Right, and then you're going, praise God, I hope he gets to know God.
Yeah.
And then he thinks less of himself, so he doesn't just go and run in front of people thinking he's all that. Praise Lord. But I thank you that you stopped me from sitting here growling or being a fool, because that's only an extra couple of minutes in line. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I would also tell people, remember whose you are, because I think at the end of the day, man, people forget who made them,
Yep.
Yeah. And who made everybody. That's the other thing, man. Like, we're all human, right? Like you said earlier, doesn't matter if you're brown, black, tan, green, purple, whatever you are at the end of the day, you are a human, right?
That's right.
And we are all out here being humans. And that's what we have to, I think that's what we have to remember about ourselves, man, and about each other. And we need to treat each other well.
And doing it daily.
Yeah.
When I give a Sunday service, I go, okay, why did you come in here today? It wasn't to listen to a toothless old man. Right. You've come because you believe that there's something said in a way that you know is from God.
Yeah.
And so train yourself to be able to pick apart what's being said, and don't be afraid to challenge it, because that's what God is. But growing with Him is just that. It's growing with Him, and it's doing things when most of the time guys say He's doing it, but He's not really doing it. That's what's Leonard Ravenhill. I don't read much books, but there used to be an author or a pastor. His name was Leonard Ravenhill, and he is about the fire of that pulpit, and how the problem and this is an old guy, so he was on fire in the 40s and 50s, I think it was, and he says that they don't pray. They pray a little bit, but they're not praying and getting messages from God. They're being told, like some churches, some Presbyterian or Lutheran, I don't know which one it is, but they'll have the reading for that week is the same reading no matter where you are in the United States, because they're a part of that church, and the head of the church sent them a book so that every week you know what you're going to give a message on, so that if you were out of town, you could go to a Lutheran church, you still get the same messages going on in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of weird to me, because I don't see where it leaves room for the Spirit but they're doing it. So I don't know, it's going past that kind of stuff and letting God and you have that right relationship,
Yeah. What do you, outside of staying in the Word, what do you do to stay connected to the Spirit?
Mine's talking to Him.
Yeah.
Mine's, like today, saying, okay, what good is this? What is this podcast good for? And being able to say, well, listen, there's a positive couple men for God.
Yeah.
Talking about the things that stir and motivate them to be attached. Let's go. Let's not we're doing this. And yeah, I pray a lot, because I'm constantly, I talk to Him like I'm talking to you. And I know that every time I do that, it helps me stay in between the two lines.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people will be like, oh, you've done this for me, and you've done this for me, and you've done this for me. And it's kind of like, hey man, like, that's the Holy Spirit working through me. Like you said earlier, I'm just a vessel, dude. I'm just a vessel. Right. And we do not gauge ourselves by what we have done in this world, but if we can just gauge ourselves by how connected we are to Him, I think that's good. So yeah, man.
I mean, it's been such a challenge. This last 12 months, there must have been 6 deaths. At least we've had 2 or 3 funerals where the old church, the old dinosaurs of the church that were, when it closed, they were told, they were raised in that church and they want to be buried where they do their service to that church.
Yeah.
So now they get to again. So it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
You just can't, it's just not getting humdrum. You work every day, but you got a wife, you got kids, or you got things going on, but being able to, how do you keep it strong? How do you keep it stirred? How do you keep him motivated? And it's talking to him. For me, it's talking to him, reading a little bit, and then going, what did that mean? How do I apply that? Okay, you're telling me this, we are the vine and you're the branches. And apart from me, I can do nothing. So that means the breathing I'm doing don't count. The work I do don't, because it's all temporal. And he wants eternal. And so for eternal, you have to be operating, doing the things that the Spirit says. And so you're like, and being able to be trained in that's just in the morning, starting it out where, yes, I believe in somebody that isn't there that you can't see naturally. I believe I hear him in my head when I'm doing things from the Spirit. There's a lot of craziness that goes on in this. Being able to believe, because if you believe that you're going to go somewhere when you die, you really believe that? That is power.
Yeah.
That is power. That's
you remove the fear from your life.
Yeah. There's nothing.
We don't have to be afraid of dying anymore.
Yeah. And that's a big deal because, like I said, I've been to where hospices. I went to, in the last year, 2 of them, or 3, where they're dying. They're giving them shots and morphine, and they're just waiting to die. And I'm going, man, Lord, I pray for them where they don't have to have that. They just snap to, or you just take them instead of this walk like that. But help me not ever have to do that, because I don't want to do that where, you take the last couple of years of your life and you're in a bed, get out and they give you a shot. And that's basically just, you live to get the shot till you finally don't wake up.
Yeah.
So, I like being able like this. It's just good. It's laid back. Nobody's pressuring anybody. We're just talking about God and the truth of him, the truth of his existence.
It's a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thanks for having it with me today, man.
You right back at you, because it fed me. It was good. It was good.
Yeah. I hope somebody sees this and hears your testimony and knows the truth that no matter what you've been through, no matter what's been done to you, no matter what you've seen or done in that way, there's a big, bright future for you here.
Big, bright future.
Yeah.
It's doing it. It's not just something you heard on a podcast. It's yours.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing. You can have the same, because if you're with God, you got that. And then, like I said, I don't know if it at least once a day, I bet you I say, I really believe there's life after death. And that motivates me, because then there's
it's kind of like words of affirmation, right?
Yeah. Words. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, it's my whole card that I keep inside me, because for Philippians, I think it is, Paul says, hey, I'm betwixt. I want to go and be with Paul, but if staying here helps you grow in your salvation, then that's what I need to do too. So I put in God's hands as to what he'll do and how he'll do it. But he says, I just live as Christ, but to die is a gain.
Yeah.
You're going. That guy's sold out. That's a sold out, fanatical, radical, revolutionary, non-violent way of getting. It's violent towards the devil and the world, but
that's okay.
That's okay, but it's not violent against anybody else. It's a good thing, a God thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir. Plant seeds along the way, and when you're done, you get to go to a great place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one man said he thinks heaven's going to be where God's going to stand you in front of this thing that looks like, what's that thing where the dream catcher, all the strands like a spider's web. He's going to have where you'll have your red dot of you, and then you'll see the red lines coming off of where you were used in here as a vessel into this person's life. Into this person's life.
Oh, what a beautiful sight.
What a beautiful sight to be able to see where it just stays, instead of just staying a red dot, where you see a dot over here, you see a dot over, you see the lines where God used you specifically, and he said,
and how that spawns out.
How that spawns out. Yeah, because you don't know. If somebody hears this, you just don't know. It's just like somebody reads something and they go, well, God darn it, if he can help him, he can help me. Yeah, that's the deal. If you can, you don't have to live in fear. You don't have to live in anger.
Yeah. What chapter is yours?
First one.
The first one. The motorcycle gang member in Sons of Grace. If you guys want a copy of it, you can hit me up. I've got a box of them at my house. Is there anywhere else that they can get them?
They can come to the church and get them free of charge.
Where's the church?
Church is at 18891, the letter Q Avenue, Grundy Center, Iowa, 50638. Because we keep them right there at the church. We have services every Sunday at 9:30. If you feel like coming for church, there's always juice, water, and coffee.
Let's go.
So,
Yeah.
Be good to see you. Some fresh faces are good stuff.
There we go. All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
No, anytime.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, I want to thank you with all my heart. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps us out. If you have questions about getting sober, parenting, or personal growth, email Nick at domesticdadproject.com with any questions about cleaning up the messes you've made. And if your question is discussion worthy, we'll feature it in an upcoming episode. Don't forget, you can watch any of these videos uncut and unedited, filmed in my studio from our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Domestic Dad Project. Also, please follow us on Facebook or share this episode on your social media. You can also join our community by grabbing some merch. It means the world to me to know that this podcast is making a difference in someone's life. And if this episode inspired you to get sober or simply become a better version of yourself, you can claim your free 60-minute coaching session by visiting www.domesticdadproject.com. Let's continue supporting each other to break the stigma around dads reaching out for help, to get our lives on track while navigating the obstacles of fatherhood. Until next time, keep cleaning up the mess.